Sorry.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of Blue Sunday here on In the Blue Corner channel. This is our Anzac Day weekend edition. Sorry for the slightly late start. I think we got going about 3 minutes late, but anyway, we finally got there, Steve. Great to see you again, Steve Katip.
Likewise, Vince.
Looking forward to a jam-packed program tonight. Unfortunately, we didn't have any option but to do it tonight, and that means we're doing it in the middle of the Richmond versus Melbourne game at the MCG, which is quite an intriguing contest, but I'm sure Carlton supporters would rather listen to us talk about what happened last night with the Fremantle Carlton game over there in Perth, where, of course, we got quite soundly beaten by 35 points, 14-13-97 to 9-8-62. So quite a comprehensive victory to Fremantle, and I don't think at any stage after half-time did we look like realistically ever getting up. I know we had a little bit of a burst at the start of the last quarter, but I think the Dockers seemed to have us quite easily handled at that stage, and in fact ran away from us in the end. So what did you make of the game?
Well, I think what it showed is that there was still some of what you'd want to call the old Carlton. If you want to call it the old and the new Carlton, I think we're probably referring to it as the old and the new Carlton a little bit. But there is still a fair bit of that at the moment. When we were able to actually clear the centre square from a ball up situation, we were very, very good. However, as soon as we had to sort of transition, the ball back.
What happened there?
I'm not sure. I'll just keep going. You're right. I'll just keep going. So yeah. I was just saying that as soon as we had to transition the ball from defence to forward line, and it's interesting, Sam Doherty sort of touched on it a little bit at that halftime interview. He talked about using footy jargon, team jargon, I suppose, is the disconnect between the lines. And that was certainly obvious to me. When we cleared the ball and got it long quite quickly, especially, with that new 6-6-6 rule, we were very, very potentially dangerous. But we couldn't play our way through their defence at all. We couldn't think our way through it. Our game plan wasn't such that we could. They controlled our halfbacks very, very well. And almost shut Saad down straight away as soon as he ever got the ball. They were happy for Williams to get it, I think, because
he butchers it.
Well, at times. I don't think he was as bad last night, but generally speaking, that was what it was. They were a well-drilled side, very, very well-drilled side. A little bit of the opposite of what we are. I think we build offense first and defense second a little bit. They're more defend first and attack second. And we've seen that over the last few years, and maybe they've gone a bit under the radar because of the fact that they've been able to not really kick scores previously. But in doing that, Longmuir's built that defence. And I just think we failed to think our way or play our way through their defence. They're generally a team defence of the field at all.
Yeah, I'd have to go along with that, especially when you look at the stats for both Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow. I mean, I think half a dozen possessions between them. And I think, maybe a couple of goals. But, really it was hardly their fault the way the ball was coming in.
Absolutely. They couldn't get any separation from their defenders at all. And the way the ball was coming in, as I said, the kick was a bomb kick, or it was just a kick into the 50 to hope. There was no thinking their way through. On the telecast, he loves saying this all the time, Burgoyne, but he talks about that money kick, that lowering your eyes kick. He's so right. That is exactly what we failed to be able to do. But the thing was you had your two forwards, but they were almost obsolete. They were your advantage, but they're actually not able to be used. So good coaching effort. Brad Turner said we made them look good, e.g. Rory Lobb or Rory Gump Lobb. Doesn't believe he's that good, but look, we did, but our defence is undersized. And I think they kicked it on the head. When Pitnet went down, I think that sort of...
That was a big loss.
Yeah, put the team balance out, and they kicked it on the head of their forwards and Ruckman, Darcy as well. So, I mean, hats off to them, really. They played smart, didn't they?
They certainly did, and I think a lot of Carlton supporters probably felt that we had the wood over Fremantle and we were just going to go over there and come away with the 4 points without having to do too much because of the fact that we've beaten them for the last maybe 4 occasions or so that we've played them. But every game's different, isn't it? You can, you can even last week we ended up beating Port Adelaide. The previous time we played them, they took us apart by 95 points. So it doesn't always repeat itself, does it?
There were some players that got off the hook that we may have underestimated. I'm not sure. Schultz for them, for example. I mean, probably one of their best players. The way he positioned himself, ran to the right position.
It was very good.
Yeah, I know he was.
Even though he ended up, I think, giving us a free kick in front of goals at one stage. I think he had a fairly late spoil on one of our players, and I think it might have been Cripps.
Yeah.
And ended up being a 50-metre penalty, and Cripps just wandered in towards the goal, and there was no Fremantle player even on the line in the end there. But yeah, Schultz is quite an impressive player. He certainly did the job as a number 5 for Fremantle. The former number 5 for Fremantle was wearing number 5 for Carlton.
Well, he got the raspberries.
He did a pretty good job against his old side last night. I think he can hold his head up high. I think he got over 30 possessions and, in fact, 32 to be exact. I think he played a pretty good game against his old team, and obviously got the Bronx, not the Bronx cheers so much, more like the boos from the crowd every time he went near the ball. Absolutely,
but look, I don't think they would have been too worried about that because he didn't really hurt them. They weren't damaging possessions, and I think Fremantle done their homework very, very well.
Put it this way: the number 5 for Fremantle did a lot more damage with his 16 possessions and 3 goals, than what Adam Cherry did with his 32 for us.
Absolutely.
I think Schultz had a bigger impact on the game.
If you just want to talk numbers, absolutely did. Our midfielders probably got a lot of the ball in some respects, Vince, but again, probably didn't use it. I think Kennedy was a bit of a loss for us, and who would have thought we'd be saying that quite a lot, but he seemed to, I think he would have been a little bit of a loss for us. It seemed that way anyway. I don't know what you thought about that.
I just feel that these injuries have been accumulating lately, and to have Silvani out before the game, to have Kennedy out before the game, and then, of course, with Pitnet going down early in the game, that really threw our team balance out, and it's exposed our underbelly, if you like, because I really don't think we have the depth on our list to cover for that many injuries. You can argue that maybe there's some players playing in the VFL at the moment that should be in the ones rather than players like Nunes and, Setterfield and Cottrell and guys like that. And no doubt we'll probably see some changes, but a lot of those guys played well last week and deserve their chance to keep their spot in the side. So they've just proven that it's very rare that they back up 2 really good games in a row. They'll play a good game or a good half last week. Take Cottrell, for example. And then this week, no impact. Nunes, the same.
I wouldn't mind if they, played well, but the team lost, because at least they showed the consistency in the development. But it's very, very, it's very yo-yo, isn't it, at the moment with their form.
We've got a comment here from Brad Turner. By the
Brad
way, if
said
anyone
it.
wants to make a comment, do what Brad's done. Send it in on YouTube or on our Facebook page in the blue corner, and you'll find us there, being broadcast live right now.
Yeah, Paddy Dow should have played on that ground yesterday. So I think Brad's referring to it was a fast deck, a ground that probably suited.
I don't understand why Liam Stocker's still playing VFL. I mean, he's been back for 4 weeks, I think.
Yep.
And playing good, consistent football in the VFL, but they must think that Nunes and Cottrell are better options on the wing than what Stocker is.
Yeah, well, we'll soon find out. Every coach has got their preferred 22. Whether they say it's picked on form or not, at the end of the day, they've got the players that they feel that they can trust or like. I think.
And Jordan Boyd, how does he get a game ahead of someone like Stocker or Paddy Dow or Lockie O'Brien? I just don't understand that.
Yeah, and this isn't about potting players. This is just
even
about
Lockie Plowman. Yeah. I mean, really, he would have been better in defence there last night. And I know he's not everyone's favourite player, but he would have been more solid down there in defence than what Jordan Boyd was. Sure.
I couldn't agree more. There's whether it's let's inject that bit of youth in because that's what we're supposed to do, have that balance of youth and experience. I don't know, but I think Boyd needs to. I'm sure he'll have a career ahead of him, but he needs to go to the VFL and work on his craft and go from there. But well, we could debate selection to the cows come home. It wouldn't really matter. It's all pretty much rudimentary that we got comprehensively beaten. Maybe it could have been slightly less. However, their system was way too good. And the longer the game went, I think it just showed that their system was a lot more efficient, consistent, and workmanlike compared to ours. So players that sort of picked and chose when they wanted to go. And
yeah. Well, look, I mean, quarter time, the first and last quarters were fairly even. I mean, the first quarter was the only quarter that we won on the night, 2-2-14 to 1-4-10. So we won that one by 4 points. But you could even tell after we'd kicked our first couple of goals of the game that all of a sudden we stopped. And they eventually got a goal before quarter time. And then they went on this run through quarters 2 and 3. They kicked 10 goals, 5 to only 4 goals, 5. So there was a 6-goal advantage on us at, pretty much three-quarter time they were in front by 32 points. So we needed to kick 6 goals to get in front. It was always going to be a monumental task. We started to come back a bit in that last quarter, but they settled again, and it ended up pretty much being even. I think they kicked 3 goals, 4, and we kicked 3 goals, 1. So they outscored us by 3. So really the first and last quarters have evened themselves out. It's those 2 middle quarters, the second, and disturbingly, the third quarter, what we used to have as a premiership quarter, we haven't won one of those third quarters all year. So yet again, we got outscored 4 goals to 2 in that third quarter.
Yeah, I think in defence of the people who love talking about that third quarter ad nauseum, I think this is a slightly different situation because most of those third quarters we were probably 6, 7, 8, 5 goals up going into those quarters.
Yeah, this just proves that whether we're up or whether we're down, we're no good in the third quarter. Not one third quarter this year so far have we outscored the opposition. And we've lost those quarters by quite significant amounts most of the time.
Yeah, I agree, but what I'm trying to say is I don't think we're any good anyway in that whole game. So you can, whichever quarter you want to slice and dice it, I think we were never going to win that game. No, but I agree with your point taken. There's a fitness or a mentality or some sort of an issue there. But in this game, it was a loss of a third quarter, but really the game was cooked anyway for mine. That second quarter, we couldn't even answer their goals. It was the consecutive goals that they got when they got a run on. We couldn't even answer or stop them. We didn't look like scoring.
No. Well, I'll tell you one thing. he only missed out on 1 week with that hamstring twinge, but gee, Cripps was. Thank God we had Cripps there last night. Otherwise, that could have been a 10-goal bashing, maybe more. He was amazing last night. I at times it just looked like he was trying to carry us on his back again. Yep. He kicked 3 goals, had 32 possessions, laid 5 tackles. He was just, clearly our most influential player on the ground.
You could say, this is not about talking about Brownlows, but if he doesn't get 2 or 3 votes for that game, nearly, considering
he would definitely get at least 1 or 2 votes. Yeah.
But to think, here's a player that's opposition are running at him. They're all trying to tackle him. He shimmies his hips. He swivels his hips. He has that ability not to get tackled 3, 4, 5 times.
He breaks tackles as well, doesn't he?
Breaks them, but then even arms are free. I mean, that is the carrying of the club on his shoulders, unfortunately, that he's having to do. But all those little things it's not so much the goals for mine. It's that ability.
What I'm saying is that importantly, he's not only back to his old form, but he is regularly and consistently kicking goals this year. And I think that's really adding another dimension to his game that he never had before on a regular basis. This year, we're seeing him kick 2 and 3 goals a game quite regularly. And I just think he's playing the best football of his career so far.
And he's actually not being... They had him a few years ago as resting as a forward. They're not doing that. He's kicking the goals from the midfield. So he's not...
as a midfielder.
As opposed to a midfielder that plays a quarter in the forward pocket or something. That's the difference. That's a huge asset. Yeah.
You are quite right. Walsh had the most possessions on the ground, 36. He had 18 kicks and 18 hand passes, 3 marks and 4 tackles. So that's, the numbers would say he's had a really good game. He certainly got off to a flying start. The first quarter, he was everywhere. I just feel that Sam Walsh is not having quite the same impact this year as he had last year. Now, I don't know if it's because others have stepped up around him, and we've also included players from other clubs around him this year. So you've got, you've got Chera and you've got Hewitt, etc. But also Cripps is back to form. So he's not being as heavily relied upon as he was last year. But I just feel that he is not impacting the game as such this year. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'm not one for stats too much and just purely looking at stats, but I would have thought, and this is just from the feel of the game, if you're allowed to talk about the feel of the game anymore.
Of course, yeah.
Meters gained, I hate that stat, but his meters gained he was running sideways last night. I think he was sort of running up, up and down the field.
His kicks were to a Carlton player, but directly across the wing, or
Correct.
So meters gained was probably 0.
Yeah, well, net. Yeah, correct. So now I think we're judging him pretty harshly. Like what year is he in his career? 3rd or 4th year, right?
4th.
Okay, 4th year. He's come back from that injury where other than we'll wait and see, but other than that Essendon player, Merritt, who is apparently going to be coming back in 30 days from that injury.
Zach Merritt,
Yeah, that's right. So you'd think that it's still, you come back on the ground, but how you can just go back to your old self after an injury like that, I don't know.
That is the thing that we should take into account. How much is that injury impeding his performance? I do wonder. I mean, it would appear that he's able to run all day long and accumulate lots and lots of possessions, but I just wonder whether he is actually at 100% fitness or whether it's still being nursed to some degree.
Yeah,
or whether he's not quite what it once was.
Time will tell on that one. Nonetheless, it's still good to have an 80% or a 70% Walsh. I'd take that any day. That's for sure.
What does it tell you? What message does it tell you when you've got 5 Carlton players all accumulating 30 or more possessions, and yet you lose the game by 6 goals? I don't think I've ever seen a loss by a Carlton team that has also included 5 players, 4 of them midfielders and the other one a defender, come midfielder anyway, in Doherty. So you got Cripps with 32, Doherty with 32, Walsh with 36, Chera with 32, and George Hewitt with 30. Now, that's your entire midfield, plus a running halfback flanker, come winger in Doherty, getting 30 or more possessions, and yet you get belted by 6 goals.
Well,
I mean, how much more can you expect of your midfield than that?
What did they do, though? Other than Cripps, more than likely, what was the quality of those possessions?
Well, you could argue that, but I mean, you can only – what I'm trying to say is, can you ask any more of a midfielder than to get the ball 30 times? You can probably say, well, I want you to use it better, but
I think it's a team. I think it's a little bit about the team connection thing, right? Because your half forwards and your half backs need to work together with your midfield.
Of course, yeah.
And they were getting the ball.
To me, it's a disturbing sign. Okay, what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to glorify these guys. I'm saying it's a disturbing sign that your midfield group is getting the ball every bit as much as you could ask for, and yet we're getting beaten by 6 goals. So, to me, that's a worry. I would have almost rather seen the midfield get comprehensively beaten and hardly touch the ball, because then I know that there's some scope for improvement. What I'm saying here is that there's not a lot of scope for improvement in your midfield when they're getting it already at 150, 160 times between 5 players.
Well, I mean, you've got to look at the rest of the team. You have to, albeit I know they didn't hurt. The midfield didn't hurt. Cripps did, but other than those other players didn't. Hewitt, that's news to me. He got 30 possessions. Like, I don't know if I noticed him on the ground that much last night. I don't know if you noticed him very much, but he got the ball.
Is it an unhealthy reliance on these midfielders? Do you think? Are we asking too much of these guys, and really we need to spread it around a lot better than that?
If we don't get those half backs playing well, I think they're as important to us as the midfield.
That's a good point, you see. Saad did his bit. He got 23 possessions. I thought he played a pretty good game.
You reckon?
Reasonable, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Are you talking about 23
Williams was the one that bothered me a bit.
Yeah. I'd say Saad got it 23 times, but there's none of this. They talk about how many bounces he has and all that, and albeit that's a bit of a junk stat because he bounces it as soon as he gets the ball. So I wouldn't say it's 15 metres every bounce. But anyway, he didn't break lines. Like, I'd rather Saad get it 15 times and break lines than get it 23 times and not break lines. I didn't see him break many lines last night.
Yeah.
Did you?
Not as many as I'd like.
Okay. Is that his fault, though? And this comes back to the point. Is it that the other players around him not giving him the shepherd, or he's getting the ball?
Yeah, I think the Fremantle players, I think they targeted him last night. I think they targeted him to make sure that his influence wasn't going to be anywhere near as much as it has been. Yeah,
I'd say he's almost a barometer. You want to talk about your midfielders? He's a huge barometer for us because we can set up those goals into the forward line. Look, you're right. To answer your question, it's a huge worry, and the back line's a huge worry as well. If Jacob Wiedering doesn't have a
Jacob Wiedering, I know what was wrong last night. He looked to me to be off. He's off his normal game.
If he was definitely off his tucker last night, but if he does not have at the moment a great game where he has all these intercept marks and does all the things that we know he can do, I think that we don't play well.
Yet he took 13 marks. They must distribute it through him around the back line when they're chipping it and around the back and going sideways and back to, how they do that, and they switch and they go back to full back. Often it's in his hands. That's why he gets 13. Well, he got 13 marks and Lewis Young got 10.
So that surprises me. Those stats are just you're reading stats. I'd never look at them. So this is fascinating. You've got two different people here. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that between Wiedering, 13, Young, 10, and Saad, 8, They were the three highest markers, if you like, or the three best players in terms of marking is concerned for the night. And they're all defenders. And that tells me that most of these marks were from chipping it around to each other. It wasn't because they were marking it because the Fremantle players were kicking it to them.
No.
They were actually getting those short chip type marks. They were uncontested.
Wiedering didn't get off his man. I think Brad Turner mentioned that Lobb got a fair few kicks lobbed on his head, right, essentially. But Wiedering didn't get off his man and intercept like he can do. And then set play up. He never had any of that opportunity at all.
You'd have to say we're missing not only Mitch McGovern after those first couple of rounds where he played so well, but Oscar McDonald obviously would be another welcome return if he was available. And I've got to tell you, Liam Jones, he would have been handy there last night too, just quietly.
If we change if the AFL changes their protocols, like something, I know we're not getting into politics, Vince, but potentially Liam could come back to footy. You never know.
I think he's done.
Yeah,
I think anyone who's pushing for all that is wasting their time. I think he's done. He's retired, and he doesn't want to take the COVID shots. And I think the AFL still has that policy that you have to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
Even though the rest of the country's now no longer mandating that, other than, of course, the Socialist Republic of Victoria, where you still can't work in a place if you're not vaccinated, but you can attend that same place if you're a customer. So there you go. Anyway, let's get off that.
Anyway, yep.
The other thing that bothered me was the small forwards. I think they've just got to do more. Always had 9 possessions for 1 goal. And young Durden, 5 possessions. Only the 4 kicks did not trouble the scoreboard.
Yeah.
That's a bad game. And I know he tries to sort of keep the ball in the forward line by laying tackles, but he still only laid 2 tackles as well. And Owi's 3. So between the two of them, they're barely doing one small forward job between the two of them last night.
For mine, they got in the way of the key forwards. I know Owi's kicked that goal early. That was a pretty brilliant goal, actually, just the way he read that.
It was a nice bit of play. That was about the only thing between the two of them that you could hang your hat on for the night.
There was no separation in the forward line whatsoever. It was like a scrum. And it was like you had the small forwards there. It was like an under-10s game where all wanted to get a kick, right? It was completely what we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
There was no clearing of the space, albeit the ball was kicked on kicked not to the advantage of the forwards, but that was No, they've got to lift, but easy to. I think it's probably problems more up the ground there, Vince. But you are right; they certainly got some improvements here as well.
And I know he only got 9 possessions, but he kicked a goal and he laid 4 tackles. I thought Jack Martin showed a little bit more last night than he normally does. He just looked like he was having a go for a bit longer. I'm not saying it was much longer, but you wouldn't be dropping him on that performance. I thought he tried harder this week, but geez, there's some worries there. I mean, Setterfield's a worry to me. Luke Parks still needs more time. I mentioned Owies and Durden, and of course, Nunes and Cottrell, and of course Jordan Boyd. That's the other one. I think it's another week. I think it's another week where we could see five changes, maybe 6 changes again to the team this week.
All right, so there's all the people in the comments here talking about there's got to be wholesale changes, and look, there's a fair bit of it's an emotional game.
You think if Silvani's available again and Kennedy's back available again, you'd think that they'd be 2 immediate inclusions. And I would be bringing Stocker back now. He's played at least 4, if not 5, maybe 4 games in the VFL, performed very consistently well. I think even Jack Carroll played a really good game in the VFL. yesterday. So he might be in line for a debut. And he's earned his opportunity after he's been on the list for all of last year, plus the first half a dozen rounds this year. So maybe it's the right time to blood a youngster like Carroll against North Melbourne this Saturday night. And of course, you can again argue the point about Dow and O'Brien, because Dow has probably earned his opportunity. He hasn't played once this year, so I would have thought he'd be in line for a call-up. They're the ones I'd probably be going for above all others.
If you do that, though, you can't be having them in and out of the team again. They must have.
You've got to give them some time.
Absolutely. Otherwise, there's no point in that. They're just going to have an unsettled team.
Yeah.
Don't be wrong. You don't want to reward mediocrity or poor performances, but you need to give those players time. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose.
Yeah. I also do wonder what's happening with players like young Jesse Motlop, who was recruited to the club. I know he's been out, I think, recently, injured. He hasn't been playing VFL. So you need to see some consistency in the VFL from someone like him before he gets a call-up. Yeah. And I do wonder what's happening with I think McGovern would be almost ready now to come back. Have to be pretty close now. Oscar McDonald again. He's another one that probably needs 1 or 2 weeks in the reserves before coming back into the seniors. Cunningham will eventually come back from that knee injury. Marchbank still out at the moment, but again, we need to have that sort of player available to give us some depth. I think what last night's game exposed more than anything was our lack of depth at the moment.
Oh, we couldn't agree more.
Our top 6 players are playing outstanding football, but it trails off pretty quickly after that. And the bottom 6 are, in some regards, just not up to it. It's certainly not on a week-to-week basis.
I'd say they're either not up to it or need to, and some have had opportunities in previous seasons, but they need to go back to the VFL and continue to improve to get another chance.
Well, mate, I think we've probably covered the game enough. We've got.
Where does it? I just wanted to quickly touch on. So where does it put us from here? Now, essentially, we're 7th on the ladder.
Yep.
Now, we did mention it last week. Our percentage is around 95%. Is probably equal to about the 14th team. Yet
that's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
That's a worry.
Issue. That is an issue.
So we're 25% or 26% behind the next team above us.
Yep.
So that's like a game almost. Now, yes, we do have the 4 wins on the board, but that is a worry.
Well, we could easily have been 2 wins and 4 losses the other way around. But the reality is that we've won those games. So credit where credit's due. We've banked those wins. Thankfully, we have done that because, otherwise we'd be, if it was 2 and 4, we'd be looking pretty sick with our percentage at the moment. But it's more important to have wins than a high percentage. But nevertheless, it can cost you spots on the ladder. So
I'm more talk about the percentages of what it indicates, though, about,
I think it indicates that we're struggling to get over the line in games, and that when we lose, we're losing by, decent margins, like 4 goals against Gold Coast, I think it was, and 6 goals last night against Fremantle. So when we get beaten, we're not only just getting beaten, we're getting comprehensively and comfortably beaten.
That's right.
And when we win, it's very rare that we're having a bit. I think only round 1 against Richmond was 25 points. All the other wins have been between 1 point and 12 points.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
We're only just getting over the line. That's what.
I think that percentage links back to that old third quarter conversation, doesn't it? Really. That's
not only the third quarter. I think the overall tally of quarters in any match, yet again last night,
Yeah.
We only won one quarter, which was the first quarter, by 4 points. The other 3 quarters, Fremantle outscored us. They turned a 4-point deficit at quarter time to a 19-point advantage at halftime, then a 32-point advantage, and eventually won by 35 points.
Yeah.
So you can't hide the fact that in, 6 games this year? We've probably won, that's 24 quarters, we've probably only won 9 of them, maybe 10.
If that. Yeah, that's right.
Maybe 10 quarters out of 24.
So the tease is, okay, you could look at it many ways. The tease is, gee, those 9 quarters, don't we, scintillating football and fast ball.
At times we've played scintillating
absolutely.
Football. It's helped us get over the line in a couple of those games, the fact that we played really scintillating football in 1 or maximum 2 quarters.
So the optimist says you do that for 3 out of 4 quarters. Let's be realistic. You can't do it for 4. Imagine how good we're going to be, right? Then
but it doesn't happen, Stephen.
The coach looks at the opposition coach goes, all right, they're a bit soft. We know that
funny you should say that. Go on, sorry. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, well, we know they turn it on. They're a bit of downhill skiers, though, because when it's all going their way, it's all great. If it goes the other way, they turn it up.
And guess who said that last week at halftime? Ken Hinkley.
Yes.
He told his team, these guys, we know that we're still in the game. We're what are we, 49 points down, but we are still in it because we know that they're not the same team when they come out after halftime, and they back themselves. And guess what? They only failed by, 3 points? Could easily have won the game. Do you know that George Hewitt last week, when he did the big hands in the air thing, which I've been talking about all week with the umpiring decisions, he should have been pinged for that, 50 metres, and he was not pinged by the umpire.
Let's not start.
No, I'm not going to discuss the rule. But what I'm saying is that they've been paying that against all sorts of other players for supposedly remonstrating about a decision. George Hewitt did that, and he didn't get the 50-metre against him. If they had paid that probably would have cost us the game.
Yeah, well.
Because they would have been kicking it from a very, very manageable distance.
Do you think that umpire would have, in his review, would have been picked up on, hey, you missed one there?
Well, possibly, because you've got to be. Look, the one thing is this: whether you agree or disagree with the rules, what we do want is consistency.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's not consistent if you don't pay it every time.
That's
Peter
correct.
Vlahos, g'day, Peter. Always got something good to say. What is he saying here?
North
with an F.
Yeah. North could be a danger game as well. Don't always assume an easy win, even though they did get thrashed by Geelong today. Well, look, if we don't come to play, and you saw them again.
Last time we played them, who won and by how much?
Yeah, I don't. That Saturday afternoon game, we got killed. 6 or 7 goals, wasn't it? 8 goals.
They took us apart.
Yeah, they did.
We can't take them lightly. We can't take anyone lightly. We play Adelaide Crows the week after. Look what they did. They beat the Western Bulldogs in Ballarat. So we're playing teams that are all capable on their day.
Yeah,
if we don't put our game together next week against North Melbourne, there's nothing guaranteed there. Nothing.
Absolutely. And
we know they're on the bottom of the ladder, but they are capable of playing good football, and they have done so against us.
Yeah, and Peter says Nick Clarkey kicked 7 goals last time.
He did.
Now that was an absolute clinic that he put on against us. It really was. Anyway,
he would be looking forward to playing us next week for sure.
Our undersized
I think he had a pretty dirty game today.
Yeah, our back line, I think any key forward, if they got the ball delivered to them, would be licking their lips thinking, I can kick some goals here today.
Yep.
So it's going to be up to the rest of the team to lift.
My word. All right. Well, we have to really get this game plan together and start stringing some good quarters together. I think that's the main thing. I mean, Voss said during the week, we know what the problems are, we know what the issues are, and we're working on them. Well, I don't see any improvement from week to week. I haven't seen anything meaningful in terms of addressing this issue for quite a few weeks now. And we've won a couple of games in that period, and we've lost a couple of games in that period, but I just don't know what they've actually done about this problem.
You're right.
It doesn't seem to be changing from week to week. We're still flat out winning one or two quarters. We're still, having our patches of good play, but then we'll go and concede many goals in a row yet again, like we did last year.
It's all about, and as you know, with football, it's all about what you do when you don't have the ball, not when you do have the ball. When you don't have the ball, I think we're certainly not defending and not doing all the right things. We're pretty easy to play against when it's not going our way.
Yeah. Indeed. And, of course, Port Adelaide, who were the only team not to have a victory before this week, finally put it together against West Coast, absolutely smashed them over there in Adelaide. So they're well and truly above. Well, they've gone from being last to now 14th on the ladder. And West Coast is now down to 17th. And North Melbourne, courtesy of their 10-goal loss today, have gone and lost a bit more percentage today. And so they're on the bottom now, 60.6%. West Coast on 61.2%. Both teams only on one win. And there's three other teams on one win. Obviously, Port Adelaide I just spoke of. GWS, one win from the first 6 games. Can they make the finals on that?
No.
Can they do what the Sydney Swans did back in, I think, when was it? It was might have been 2017. They lost the first 6 games, and then they won 14 out of the last 16 games and made the finals.
Yeah, there were
quite comfortably in here.
Yeah, I think Swans had a lot of injuries, though, and there were a few excuses that they had for that period. GWS isn't the same team as the Swans. I think that they're probably, at best, probably a 7th or 8th team anyway, for mine. So it's going to be a tough ask.
And you'd think if Essendon loses to Collingwood tomorrow in the big Anzac Day clash, it's going to be mighty hard for them to make finals too, if they're going to be 1-5.
Yeah, I'd say probably
it's almost game over.
Yeah, that's correct. You're starting to see teams now, if they don't have they're not 2-4. I think 1-5 is probably. These aren't good teams that are 1-5. They're teams that are fringe teams at the best anyway that are 1-5. So you're not really looking at a team that's underperforming. You're probably seeing the real team.
Yeah, well, Gold Coast lost again today, another big, heavy loss against Brisbane. Brisbane seem to have their measure in these Q clashes.
Yeah,
52-point victory to the Lions today over at Metricon. So the Gold Coast are yet again inconsistent. 1 week they'll come out and beat us. The next week they go and lose to, I think it was St Kilda last week.
Yeah. Now
they've lost to Brisbane. They're only on 2 wins and 4 losses after 6 games. You'd think again if they don't make the finals for their 12th consecutive season, you'd think that the end is nigh for Mr. Stuart Dew.
Look, it would be, and
he's had his opportunities.
He's had his chances, and there's a lot of cultural challenges up there, so to speak, regarding player retention, football club culture, the whole thing. But nonetheless, all those excuses aside, I think that Dew's had his opportunity.
I'm going to make a prediction with you, or for you, if you like.
Okay.
By the end of this year, I think there will be a little bit of a coaching merry-go-round happening. I have a feeling that Stuart Dew will be told to leave, given his marching orders. I think Ken Hinkley will leave Port Adelaide and go up to Gold Coast, where he used to be an assistant.
Yep.
And he much prefers it up there because it's not a real football environment. He's the sort of guy that doesn't like
out of the fishbowl
limelight. And in Adelaide, he cops it everywhere he goes.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got a feeling he's done his time at Port. I also can't see Port making the finals. They're the sort of team that could do a Sydney Swans and win a string of games and make finals. They could.
Yeah.
But I just feel that, okay, they had a big win against West Coast, but West Coast is a shadow of themselves. I don't think Port's going to make finals this year. So I think Hinkley might go up to Gold Coast and coach them. And Nathan Buckley will come back to coaching at Port Adelaide, his former club. There you go. So there's your little merry-go-round that I was referring to.
Okay. Well, lots of the universe has to align and all the rest of it, but
of course. But I'm looking at it realistically. I can't see Gold Coast making finals.
I can see your logic.
I can't see Port Adelaide making finals, and that's why I think there might be a bit of a coaching merry-go-round going on there. I can't see Nathan Buckley coaching any other team other than Port Adelaide. Can you?
Hard to tell, really.
Who else is going to need a coach before the end of this year? Do you think?
Do you think he wants to coach again?
Well, they're not going to get rid of David Noble at North Melbourne.
No.
Adam Simpson, is he on shaky ground at West
He's got
Coast,
credits in the bank. No,
he won a flag with them only 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, but they've got an ageing list, and everyone admits that.
Yeah, and everyone knows that they've got to rebuild. Okay,
yeah.
So he'll probably be given at least the first 2 or 3 years to rebuild that list, and they want to start seeing some improvement by then. Yeah.
Yep.
Essendon. Well, I mean, Ben Rutten's pretty safe there.
Yep.
Even though they may not make finals this year, they made it last year. The only other side I can see maybe looking for a coach and departing with their current coach is GWS with Leon Cameron. He's been there a long time now. He's been there.
I thought he re-signed. I thought he just re-signed.
Did he?
I could be wrong. There was big talk. There was big.
If anyone knows, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I think that I thought that they were going to leave it until the end of this year. And both parties said, let's just see how things go, and then we'll review it after we see what sort of a year we had. So I believe it's time for Cameron to say, you know what, I've had a pretty decent stint here. Got us into a grand final and a prelim final in 2016, a grand final in 2018. Was it 18?
19.
19, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a few other semi-finals along the way. And I know that they made semi-finals last year too because they beat Sydney Swans in the elimination final. But I just think it might be time for a different voice, a different message, and a different game plan.
A little bit of it's probably got a few excuses regarding like Toby Green not being available for all those games early in the year.
Yeah, I hear that, but I mean GWS similarly to Gold Coast, maybe not quite as bad, but they also struggle to keep a lot of their good players. A lot of them end up leaving.
Well, but that's about the hard part that GWS.
Look, you had Jeremy Cameron leave eventually, went to Geelong. Dylan Shield goes to Essendon. In
their defence, Vince, that you've got at GWS all these kids with no experience around them, and they all improved, and by year 3 or 4, they're all on $700,000 a year. What do you do?
Well, their managers do.
Well, yeah, of course, they're vultures.
Well, they're shopping them around. That's the problem.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and they see
some of them. They've ended up keeping Canelio, ended up keeping Josh Kelly, and
they get rid
of Toby Green. But how many of them can you keep on massive money? Can't keep
we bought some at the garage sale, didn't we?
Well, we got the trash and treasure market. Thanks to Stephen Silvani.
Well, we also paid overs for I wouldn't say lemon, but certainly a player that's certainly not worth what hasn't shown yet.
Well, Zach Williams is not worth anything close to $900,000 a year.
Correct.
In fact, he wouldn't even be worth half that. even as a halfback flanker. But, good luck to him. His manager obviously did a really good job of securing a big deal for him. We're the ones that are paying the price, but we're not getting value.
No,
we're
not.
And I honestly don't think we ever will.
Hard to see. Yeah, hard to see him improving a lot more and providing us that value. His actually fitness looks all right. I don't think it's about fitness. It's about kicking and smarts now, isn't it?
Yeah. I just think he's a basic halfback flanker. I don't know what the big deal is about him. I honestly don't. I don't know why we chased him. I don't know what we saw in him. I don't know why we offered him so much money. I don't see any accountability for these sorts of decisions at board level.
Well, I mean,
the people responsible are in list management. Where's the accountability for these decisions?
We keep harping on it, but you've got 3 players here.
Mm-hmm.
4, and you're probably giving one of them an excuse at the moment. He's injured. You've got McGovern. Okay, maybe a resurrection of sorts has occurred. Maybe, but still,
if you look at the overall,
no. But still,
the
he's not.
Of time that he's been at Carlton. Okay, we've seen him play a couple of good games this year because we finally realised that the guy should be played in defence in a similar role to his brother, right? It only took us 4 years to realise that.
Hang on. Did we realise that, or was that our last roll of the dice to reinvent him? Because I don't give credit to someone who says we realised that and we finally understood his best position.
No, we tried
him everywhere.
They tried it.
Yeah,
they had not tried that before. Now, they should have tried it 4 years earlier.
But hang on. When you say tried it, there was no science behind them trying it. It was just, we've tried this, and this. Let's put him there and see if it works. Come on. There's no logic there. It's not. If there was science behind trying it because they saw something in the way he played or his style or technique or whatever, they would have done it year 2 or 3 when he was struggling. Now it's just clutch at straws. What can we do? Liam Jones is gone. Oh, we'll put him in defence. See how that works.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't give any. You've set me off now. I give no credit to that move. That is a desperate. Just find somewhere for him. Anyway, sorry, we go on.
I know what you're saying. It's like throwing a whole heap of darts at the dartboard, and one of them happens to have fallen on the bullseye.
Yeah, that's not a coaching masterstroke. Anyone that wants to spin that as the PR department, that's just, here's a player we've tried everywhere and we'll find a spot for him behind the footy because of Liam Jones is gone. Let's hope that works to save face. Really?
Well, let's go back to the 4 players. You've got Zach Williams, Mitch McGovern, Jack Martin, and Adam Sard.
Adam Sard's the best out of all of them.
Of course. But is he worth what you're paying him? He's still a halfback flanker.
Look, on his day, he's worth a bit more, possibly. On his day, he's probably worth a bit more. On average, maybe slightly not quite up to.
And now you got Chera. He's the 5th one.
Oh, too early to tell. You can't.
But what I'm saying is that he's another recruit on big money.
Yeah.
Right? On big money. So that's another high-priced recruit. Now, we need to see some value.
So are you, and I think we're linking this conversation back to the 10-minute mark of the show, I can't exactly recall, where we start talking about team balance and depth and all of that. Like, really, if you think about it, we'd be better placed, like some of the other better sides, with $300,000 players, if you want to talk about it from a financial perspective, than the $200,000 players or slightly above that we've got this big gulf between our best and our worst players. Is that what you're trying to link that argument? Because if you are, I think you're probably right.
And I'll tell you another thing that I reckon happens, and anyone who tells me that it doesn't has no idea what they're talking about.
But feel free to comment on the show.
But feel free to express your opinion.
Yeah.
There is a bit of, how can I describe this? there's a bit of backroom banter and talk and sneering and even jealousy, if you want to go that far, between your average run-of-the-mill Carlton players who are on 150, 200,000, and some of these high-priced recruits that are on 6 and 7 and 8 and 900 grand. And I reckon that when you recruit these sorts of guys into your club and they're not really worth anything close to what they're getting paid, and yet you've got these other guys who are busting their backside to try and earn their spot, and they're on real basic money, you can't tell me that doesn't affect them.
Let's think of it as a workplace. And I know
let me just put it this way. I know for a fact, because I've been told by past players, that this sort of thing gets talked about, and it does play on their minds, and it does piss them off when a high-priced recruit comes along, and they think. So I'm playing just as well as him, if not better, and he's on 900 grand, and I'm on 250.
You're talking about the movie The Club, where Haywood, the boy from Tasmania, comes in, right? and the what's his name? Curly-headed.
All of that, but times 5 or times 6. That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so we've got 6 of those Tasmanian boys coming in like on Haywood. Big money.
Yeah. Well, look, you're right.
That was the actor John Howard.
That's
not the former Prime Minister, obviously.
So no.
Yeah, John Howard, the actor. Yes.
Yes. So we've got 5 Haywoods, maybe not 5 of them, but we've got a few of them, and you've got players that are, beaten up and hurt. And look, Carlton Footy Club off field is a little bit like the club, possibly.
Maybe we want to do a Carlton. Maybe we want to do a club revisited, except do it at Carlton instead of Collingwood. Wouldn't that be terrific?
Well, I can anyway. Who would play Jock and who would anyway? Let's go.
We'd have to get Jack Thompson back as the coach and Graham Kennedy back as the president. I don't think so. You'll never get Graham Kennedy back, that's for sure.
No, we won't, unfortunately. Look, you're right. And here's the thing, right? Think of a workplace. If people knew what people were paid, and someone was taking the, P155, right? Let's say that.
Yep.
Of course, there's that animosity and resentment. Only everybody knows these players are on big coin.
Yep.
And players are competing for their share of that pie, that salary cap. They're also competing for their spot on the list.
Yeah.
And they know they've got a short career. And also their managers they've gone to their manager and say, get the best outcome you can for me. Their managers say, hey, you want to stay at Carlton? They've only got this much money left for you.
That's it.
It doesn't create a great culture, does it?
Nope.
You can have all the kumbayas you want and go to campfire and fall backwards, ball catch you and all that stuff, right? All the kumbayas and all the bonding and spirituality and everything you want. You can do all of those things. But if you know the bloke sitting next to you
is on 900 grand.
On 900 and he's not 80% better than you, or at least
he's twice as good.
Yeah, correct. You'd think, what's wrong? Yeah.
Well,
don't worry.
I think it's very dangerous list management, and it'll be interesting to see how our list managers go about things in the next 2 or 3 years, because some of those contracts are going to come up for renewal, such as Mitch McGovern, such as Jack Martin, and the other ones that we've mentioned. So how are they going to manage it then?
How do you have the conversation, Jack? You were on X and now you're on half of X if you want to stay here. And the problem is, who will pick him up?
Well, he might not have an option. He might have to cop it. But what does that do to his psyche? He's now saying, "Oh, now I'm only on, I'm no longer on 700 or 800.
Lifestyle change.
350 or 400.
It's a big lifestyle adjustment, isn't it?
Yeah,
potentially.
Now it's still a lot of money. 350 or 400,000 compared to the average wage is significant. But when you've been used to getting 700 or 800, are you going to be going in hard for that football when you're going to get your head beaten up at 300 grand a year, or is it a lot easier to go in for it when you're getting 800?
I think the problem is you're not going in for it consistently in the first place, and I don't think Leopards can change their spots in that way. I really don't believe that if you've got that pick and choose, that ability to drift in and out of games too often, I think that's a problem.
Well, Adelaide Crows are quite happy to let players go if they've got offers from other clubs that are way over what they believe that they're worth. And they just say, well, we think you're worth X. If this other club thinks you're worth X plus 40% or X plus more, 70%, see you later. If you want to leave, go.
There's a loyalty superannuation tax that you almost pay retrospectively with these players, right? And that's fine. Add 10, 15% maybe to that as almost a in arrears payment that those players are getting for service and loyalty. But we're giving these players ridiculous overs prior to even them jumping on the ground. Yeah.
And yet, here we are having a shot at some of these players that we say are not putting in enough and they're not up to it. They're in the bottom six. They're probably getting 100, 150 grand a year. That's about it.
Well,
guys like Cottrell and
this is economics.
Fringe players.
This is economics, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, we're all got a salary cap. We've all got a piece of the pie. Those players, I think we probably, we're saying, they should be dropped and they're no good. But you are right. At the end of the day, they're doing their best. They don't go out there to make mistakes on purpose. No. That's just, I think they are what they are. Right?
They are what they are. And it's not their fault that they get selected to play. I mean, if they get selected to play, they go, okay, fine. So you need me in the seniors this week. I'll go out and play to the best of my ability. But they're clearly not up to the same level as our best players, but they do their best under the circumstances. Now, if they're just not good enough or not up to it, it's not their fault that they're being selected. We should be pointing our fingers at the selection committee and whoever's making those decisions.
So if you go deeper and you start looking at the list management, and this is what probably has always concerned me, and I know it's an issue for you too.
Yeah.
Why have we been so desperate because we haven't been able to attract players to our club that we've gone and decided to pay overs to probably players that weren't worth throwing the kitchen sink at for the sake of just purely landing someone rather than the right person? Yep. We were probably better to try and get a couple of decent mid-range players that would at least contribute that depth to the team.
Yep.
And I think that's been proven. And there's a fair bit of pressure on that recruiter, though, from unfortunately from board level, although they will never admit that we need to land a fish. We need to sell the dream. We need to sell that. Look what we've gone and got. Look what the future's bright. Look at what we've been able to attract to our club.
Yep.
But really, in hindsight and retrospect, other than probably Saad, all of those players have been complete failures consistently. Now, this is not just a coincidence. This is a disturbing trend.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that's just the recruiter's fault. The club, the board have to sign off on a contract that's so excessive as part of their due diligence. They have to.
Yeah.
And that's a major concern.
And the board might say, well, look, we're only rubber stamping it. Really, we're in the hands of the recruiters. The recruiting department or the list management is under the direction of the CEO. So if the CEO is not happy with them, he should replace them. But if he is happy with them and they're making decisions like this, which are detrimental to the future of the club, where's the accountability?
That's all I would say. You're absolutely right, Vince, because these decisions aren't just, we got it wrong in 2018. No. you're actually carrying that salary. You're carrying that player and that decision
for the next 5 years.
And the opportunity cost of what you could have done with that money.
Yep.
Instead, and that pick, instead you've gone and used it here. Well, you could have gone and done this.
And don't forget what I said earlier, the effect that it has on the rest of the team and their attitude towards that player. And, it just upsets the whole equilibrium of what should be the payments to each and every player based on their ability and based on their performance.
Yeah.
I mean, what they should be paid is based on performance rather than potential. And when you recruit another player from another club into your club, you're paying them on their potential to what they could do for your club. You're not paying them on performance for your club. You might be paying them on their performance at their own club, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to perform that way at your club. So it's a real gamble to be recruiting the Jack Martins who want to leave Gold Coast for a nice lucrative contract at Carlton. And to some extent, Adam Chera at 700 or whatever he's on, and Mitch McGovern. These are big gambles that we took. And you're right, we probably only did it because they were the only players that were prepared to come over, but we had to offer them way overs just to get them. And that's no way to recruit. That's no way to recruit. If you've got to pull out the checkbook and keep tempting people by dangling the big carrot purely about money, they're coming over for the money, not because they want to be part of your organisation necessarily.
But Vince, they weren't even up to 70 or 80% of that salary in performance. That's the scary part. So not only have they gone and done that.
Zach Williams, to me, out of all of the contracts, that is the worst. That is the worst one of all.
They would
worse
say
than worse than McGovern's.
Yep.
Worse than Jack Martin's and all of that, because he has never been a midfielder and never will be a midfielder and never had the tank to be a midfielder, and yet we paid him like he was Joel Selwood or Patrick Dangerfield or Patrick Cripps. Really?
Their argument would be they got him for nothing, though. That's their argument.
What?
Now,
Zach Williams?
Sorry, pardon me. I'm thinking of Martin. Sorry, you're right. No, Williams, we paid for him. No, you're exactly right. Sorry. I'm talking about Martin. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, Williams is exactly
right. No. So I just think there needs to be some explanation and some accountability for this. But yet again, we get AGMs every year. Nothing of this is spoken about. Nothing. Not a word. No one asks the questions about it. No one gets brought up to the microphone to explain anything about it. Yet again, it's all just a rubber stamping exercise.
So that's a good segue.
And leave us alone until next year.
That's a good segue to the email we received during the week.
Yep.
Regarding, now let's get into the corporate stuff, shall we?
A little bit.
Purpose, vision, ethos, pathos, all of these lovely, warm and fuzzy things that we love to talk about.
Buzzwords.
Yeah. Look. A healthy body and a healthy mind, I think that's enough for me. Sorry, my Latin wasn't my best subject at school. Is that what is it? Can you translate it for me, Vince? What is it?
Yes. Mens sana in corpore sano means a healthy mind and a healthy body.
Yeah, exactly. So that's our purpose and our vision. Now, so as part of, I don't know for what reason, Brian Cook sent an email out to the members and said, "Would love to hear from you." Oh, you would you? Okay. And I know this is not coming from him. He's just the person.
And it's all, of course, tailored to be addressed to you and dear Steve, and writing Vince, to you in your own name, and to my letter of comment with dear Vince. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's we'd love to hear from you.
That's fine.
We're rewriting our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to get some feedback from you about what our purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, please.
The sad part about all of this is, Steve, that And this is no reflection on Brian Cook, but
he's just the messenger.
He's just the latest CEO. But really, I've gotten to a point now where everything that gets communicated by the club, I look at it through a totally different lens to the lens that they want me to look at it through. So rather than getting an email like that which says, I'm interested in knowing what you think about our club, I immediately think, no, you just want me to think that you're interested in what I've got to say.
Absolutely.
And that's why you've sent me this survey, which has not been prepared by you. None of the questions have been prepared by you. They're all being devised by a PR company.
Yes.
And by the end of it all, even if I take my half an hour, which you tell me is only going to take me 5 or 10 minutes, it takes them at least half an hour to get through it all. And I'm going to take that time and send out your little survey with A, B, C, or D against each question.
And think deeply.
Think deeply about every single one of them and answer them all honestly and truthfully. Now, once I send it all, I never hear anything back after that, Steve. So have I got any right to be a little bit apprehensive about all this stuff now?
And you and I aren't special because we don't expect a response back to say, hey, Vince, you know how I personally addressed that email? I'm doing it again. Thank you for your feedback. I value it. Of course not. But what we'd love to see is this. We'd love to see the survey outcomes presented back to the members.
Accumulated results. This is what
de-identified.
74% of members said yes to this or no to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And we'd
but
like
we don't
that.
Hear anything.
We do hear snippets. What they do is they massage.
They cherry pick.
Yeah.
And if they cherry pick the stuff that they want that we answered favourably to. But if everyone said, for example, no, we all want, right? For example, I'll use a hypothetical. We all want to have games back at Optus Oval or whatever it used to be called. Princess Park.
Yeah.
Okay? We all want to play games, at least one game a year there. Now, if every single member said yes to that question, not that they'd ask it, do you think
because they wouldn't want the answer.
do you think that they would actually publish that? I don't. Because they know that they're not going to do it.
Absolutely.
So they're just not going to do it. Or if every member said we want to play, all of our games at the MCG, we don't want any games at Marvel. Are they going to publish that?
What they should do is publish it, though, and explain, hey, look, you said this.
We understand that this is what you want.
This is untenable, however, because of these reasons. What we are doing, though, is this to get close to what you want because
we're trying to get more games at the MCG.
Without you,
get 6 or 7. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But no, there's none of that. There's none of that. But this goes to show they operate in a vacuum. They're just extensions of the AFL.
I'm going to say to you people out there that are watching this show is if you think that they are going to send out this survey and actually do anything as a result of the survey, you're kidding yourself. Just understand one thing. When you spend your half an hour or however long you're going to take to do the survey, you could have been doing something else with that half an hour because it's essentially a waste of time.
Do yourselves a favour, and you're going to probably say I'm negative, and people could call it, and I'm open to that. So I'm negative, and anyone can criticise me as long as you do it in an intelligent way. I'm happy to respond back. Doing the survey makes me more angry than just deleting the email. I'd rather just not engage because I know, like you, that it's a waste, it's a futile exercise because I'm never going to see anything from that survey at all. And you know what? I'd love to know what other members think and almost break it down for us and say, hey, look, we've noticed that members that have been 15 to 30, 40-year members, these were the sorts of responses we got from them. Yet the younger members or lesser tenure members, potentially, not age group, lesser tenure, said this. We're seeing both sides of the spectrum here. We understand. This is what we want to hear, not just cherry-picking answers and that. But
Look, Carlton has just become a PR machine. It just spews out one bit of propaganda after another, and the truth doesn't matter anymore. No. It used to. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters to them is what they want. What they want us to think. That seems to be the overriding purpose of everything that comes out of the club. It's all about how they can massage our minds to think what they want us to think. That's Absolutely. What they spend all of their money, all of their resources, all of the PR firms. They're all coming up with things to make us think what the board wants us to think. And that can be totally different to what the real truth is. They don't care. All they want is the perception to be there about what Carlton is doing and how it's succeeding or how it's going about its business. We could bring up the women's team situation again, but we've done it ad nauseum. But there's a good example of how the club is just not telling us what's really going on in there.
And blaming the system.
And they're not offering any realistic explanations as to why we are hemorrhaging quality female players out of our club.
And then they blame...
And going on to other clubs.
Yeah, blaming the system or the environment. Yeah. I get it, 1, 2 or 3 players leave.
Yeah.
Barkas is a lifelong Essendon supporter until she joined Carlton. I understand. Sure. No problems. But you're looking at 8, 9, 10 players? Come on.
Well,
look. Anyway.
Again, and then they sign up the coach and say, isn't it wonderful, we've just given the coach another couple of years. Now, that might be the right decision, but it might also be a disastrous decision. When we said earlier this year that, there's been a big call amongst the supporters that we need to get rid of Daniel Harford and all the rest of it because we lost our first 4 or 5 games or whatever it was. We said, well, why is there this obsession with sacking the coach? Why is Daniel Harford necessarily the reason why the team is not being successful? Now, conversely, now that they've signed him up for 2 more years, we're saying the opposite. Why did they sign him up for 2 more years? How do we know that he isn't the problem?
We don't know either way.
We don't know either way. That's the point I'm trying to make. There has been no review done of the female department or the female program. The woman who got re-elected back in February, back to the board, who's responsible for AFLW and VFLW, which is Paddy Kinnersley. She's also in charge of this Carlton Respects program. She got re-elected. Not once has she spoken about the AFLW program and what its issues and what its problems are.
No.
And addressed anything at the AGM. Nothing at the AGM was mentioned about the women's program either.
However, Vince, coming back to your point about what the board wants you to think, all the focus has been on the development, and which is in her remit. So
there you go.
She'll talk about one part of her portfolio, but not the other part of her portfolio.
She loves to talk about the Carlton Respects program, but boy, does she not. But she doesn't mention much about the AFLW program and how it's been disastrous the last few years with losing players. Nothing from her, nothing from the president, nothing from anyone. Not even from the CEO himself. Ryan Cook hasn't said anything about the AFLW program either. Now, he's the CEO of the entire club, so that comes under his jurisdiction as well.
All we're hearing is that it's tough because we're losing players because the new new teams are coming in. That's all we are hearing.
That's an excuse.
It's not good enough.
Absolutely nothing more than an excuse. Those teams may very well be going after other players from other clubs, but we've got just as much of a salary cap as they have.
Absolutely.
Why can't we manage our salary cap so that we're offering our best players what they're worth, if not a little bit more, just to keep them? We shouldn't be losing Matty Prasparkas just because he's meant as a supporter.
Or why can't we attract other players from other clubs to fill those voids? Potentially.
Well, we've lost a lot of high quality players in recent years and replaced them with players that you'd have to say don't quite stack up as the same level of quality.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's
we talk about recruiting. We talk. It's just And you know what? We don't need any of this purpose stuff. We don't need any of that. We've got.
I'll tell you what our purpose is. It's to be a football club for all of the supporters that follow us, and our purpose is to win premierships. And that should be the number one thing on our mission statement, if you want to call it that, to win premierships.
And
in both
the reason,
and women's program.
And the reason that is not the number one thing is because what the board would love to do is, hey, look over here. We've actually failed in our real purpose, the one that you've talked about. We're failing in it. Let's hope we get better. We're failing. We have failed for some time.
But let's be good model citizens at the same time. That's our other purpose.
But don't over highlight what isn't our real purpose. Our real purpose is what you just said. Anyway,
Stephen, we've gone a bit over time, but nevertheless, it's been a good discussion.
It has.
We'll look forward to getting together again next Sunday night at 8 o'clock, which will be Sunday, the 1st of May, the very first day of a new month. What I call it May Day, May the 1st.
So let's hope it's not May Day after the game.
Yeah. Well, we play on the Saturday night. We're playing on the last day in April. Saturday night at Marvel Stadium. I think it's at 7:20 or thereabouts against North Melbourne. Let's hope that we can find some form and reverse that troubling trend that we've had in recent weeks and get back on the winners list. We're still in the 8, so hopefully we can have a win against North and get back to a nice, healthy 5 wins and 2 losses scenario after 7 rounds. All right, mate. Thanks again for your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Sunday at 8 o'clock. And to all of you out there who've been watching, thanks very much for supporting our program. Don't forget, you can leave a comment on our YouTube channel, In the Blue Corner, or on our Facebook page with the same name. In the Blue Corner group is where you'll find us and be able to leave a comment. Okay, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week. Until then, go Blues.